this flowchart, we will create a flowchart based on the given problems here on the left-hand side of your screen. So the first problem is, the first situation is you need to draw a flowchart that prints out the words "Hello World." Okay, so the way we go about starting to create this is we need to create the terminator first. So we'll go into the shape, and then the bottom of this shape option here. There are three parts: this first level, second level, and the third level. And in this third level, we have different symbols for our flowcharts. We have the process, we have the ultimate process, the decision, the data, predefined flowchart, and many more. So what we need to do in the beginning is we need to create a terminated flowchart, which is this one. Draw. As we all know, there's only one start and one finish. So let's put here a start. I'll put that in the center. Then after that, we need to create another one, which is for the end. Okay, so we'll put that there, and then we name this one the end. So we have the start and the end. So the main problem that we need to solve is how do we print out the words "Hello World." We do print it out, or we print it out by using the data symbol, which can be found over here. That's the data symbol. This data symbol is used for printing and reading information. So if we need to print out something, to display something, we use this particular symbol. And if we want to get input or read something from the user, we also use this particular symbol. So since what we need to do is only print out inside this particular symbol, we just need to use the word "print" and then enclosed in it, enclosed in quotation marks, we write "Hello World." If we want to print out a different text, then we need to write it inside the quotation marks. So say, for example, we want to say, "Hi, how are you?" This is how we write it. Okay. If we want to write or to display our name, then we write our name inside the quotation marks. If we don't put the quotation marks, what it will do is it will recognize it, or it will try to recognize it as a variable. But in this case, this is not a variable. This should be a text. Okay. But then again, this is not what we wanted to print out, because that's not what the problem is asking from us. The problem is asking from us to print out the words "Hello World." So we're going to print "Hello World." And then after that, we need to connect all these things by creating an arrow. So as soon as we select the arrow, we can connect all these symbols by hovering onto the symbol, and then as soon as we hover, we will see those blue or purple dots, and then we click on one of those dots and then drag to the second symbol, and then we do the same thing with our other symbols. Now, if we don't do that, say for example we click like this, whenever we adjust our symbols, the arrow will not follow along. If we forget to connect the symbols using the purple lines or purple dots. Okay, so say for example, delete that. So this is number 1. Okay, so we'll move this one to the side because what we will try to solve the other one, the second problem. So here, the problem says, or is asking us to show what the user writes, or what the input of the user is. So if the user input is 5, we will print out 5. If the user um, types in the words hello, we will print out hello. We will display hello. If the user types in computer, then we will say, or we will print out user or computer. Okay, so again, we will start by making a terminator. Okay, then I'll copy that, paste, because I want one start and then one end. I like putting them at the center because it's easier for them to read. Okay, so I have one start and I have one end. So again, if we want to print out something, if we want to get an input, we use the data symbol. So we click shapes here, and we go and click symbol. So since we want to let the user type something, we're going to type in here read, and then after writing the word read, we will write a variable name. In this case, I will write the variable inward, or input, just input text. Okay, again, I can also write here if I wanted to. I can just write here the word X. But then again, X does not really mean anything, or it's difficult to understand what X is. Right? It could be a number, but it doesn't tell me that. But if I write the word input text, then it's easier for people who don't know what exactly this is. It's easier for them to understand what input text is, because input text is a text, an input that is based on text, something like that. Okay, so this particular symbol here will get what the user types in, and whatever the user types in will be saved inside this variable called input text. Okay, so and then whatever the user types in, we need to print it out, and we do that by typing, or by creating another data symbol and then printing out whatever is inside our variable. Okay, so we get whatever the user types in and we put it inside input text, and then after that we print out whatever is inside input text by saying, or by typing, print input text. Please remember not to put them together. They need to have a space in. Please remember that it should not be inside quotation marks, because this is a variable. This is not just a text. Otherwise, what they will see is the word input text instead of whatever they type in. Okay, so after that, we're going to create an arrow, a flow line going downwards. Okay, we need to connect all the symbols. Okay, as you can see there, I did not fully connect the two symbols, and that's why it got broken. So I need to connect the two symbols again. If you connected them right, they will follow the symbol wherever it goes. Okay, So this is how the second problem is solved. Next one, I'm going to put this one over here so that we can solve the second or the third particular problem. So the third particular problem is creating a flowchart that adds the word hello before the variable. Okay, so this is quite similar to the second problem that we have, but what's interesting is that we need to put the word hello first before we print out what they type in. Okay, so say for example they type in the word apple. Okay, so before you print out apple, you need to say hello and then apple. Okay, so the way we go about doing that is we're going to follow the same structure as the second problem, but then in our print, in our third symbol, what we will do is we type the text hello and then put a space in there so that it's, and then put in the text or the character ampersand. Now, what this does is it allows for this particular text and this particular input or this particular variable to be connected. If you don't put that in there, it will not be right. It will not show the program right. So you put in the end symbol there to connect the two, the variable and the text. Okay, if you want to print out the variable first before the text, then you go and then type whatever text you like. Say for example that. Or if you want, you can say how are you. Say hello first and then whatever they type in and then say how are you. So, hello. So say for example they type in Nexus. Hello. What will be printed out will be hello and then Nexus, and then after that it will say how are you. So let me just show you what it actually prints out. Okay. What will be printed out into the screen will be this is what will be printed out into the screen. That is, if the input was the word Nexus. If the input was, say, Maria, then this is how it will be printed out. Okay, so that's number 2 and number 3. So what about if we want to solve problem number 4? Okay, again, we will start off by creating the terminator. Put that into the center. Let me copy that. Put that in that type and end. So the problem here states create a flowchart that gets 2 inputs from the user, then show the sum of the 2 inputs. So the keyword here is sum. The keywords here is sum and 2 inputs. So there will be 2 inputs, and then we will need to process the 2 inputs. Then after that, we will need to show what is the sum of those 2 inputs. So first thing is we need to initialize. Okay, initialize our variables. We need to create our variables. So we do that by creating a process or by using the process symbol. Okay, so in this process symbol, we write sum. We have input num1 and input num2. Okay, so we have three variables here, and we will initialize them. We will put a value in them that is 0. So we do that by creating the left arrow. So I'm going to write the lesser than symbol sign or symbol, then minus minus. What it does is it creates an arrow that looks like that. Again, lesser than minus minus. Okay, not like this. Okay, not like that. Otherwise, it will be wrong. It's only a left arrow. Okay, so sum, and then I put 0, which what this means is that 0 will be put inside sum, or sum will get a value of a 0. Okay, the same thing with input num1 and input num2. So at the beginning of the flowchart, the values of our variables, our three variables here, is 0. Okay, so let me create an arrow first. So after this, we will need to ask a user input. So again, we know here that we need 2 inputs. Okay, so again, we're going to use a data symbol because it's an input. So the thing to recognize if it's going to be a process symbol or a data symbol is to ask ourselves if there's going to be an input or an output. If there's going to be an input or an output, then we need to use the data symbol. If it's not an input or an output, if it's something that the computer needs to process, like an equation or something, then we will need to use a process symbol. The process symbol does not allow you to print nor to read input or to get input from user. Okay, so we need to get input from user, actually 2 inputs. So we're going to write input num1 and then input num2. So we have to also be careful not to mistype our variables. Okay, so we wrote it like this in the beginning. We also need to write it like this one whenever we use the variable. Otherwise, it will create a confusion and it's not going to be right. So we're asking 2 inputs. If you write here the variable sum, that would tell the user that there are 3 inputs, which is wrong. Why? Because sum should be the result of adding the 2 variables, input num1 and input num2, and not an input from the user. Okay, we need to calculate the sum and not get what the user types in, whatever the user types in. Okay, so after getting the input from the user, the inputs from the user, we need to process those 2 inputs. Again, we're going to create a process symbol here. And in here, we're going to write sum gets the value of input num1 plus input num2. Okay, let me put that into the center. Okay, since we are talking about the sum, we need to add the 2 numbers. If we're talking about if we want to get the product, then we write sum. We write the asterisk symbol. If we are not adding the 2 numbers, if we are simply adding 10 or multiplying input num1 to 10, then we write something like this. Okay, if we want, we can write a different equation or much more complicated equation. Okay, so these are just examples, but in this particular problem, we need to add the two inputs. Okay, so after adding the two inputs, we need to show or to display the result, since our problem states that we need to show the sum of the two inputs. Okay, so we need to create our output, which we can say print result and sum. Okay, so basically it can be written like this. It can also be written like that if you just want to print the sum, but I want it to be a little bit clearer to the user how it is, so I will write the words sum and the text result. I could also change this if I want to, so that it displays sum or something like that. Okay, I could also, if I want to, I could also just delete this and print input num1 plus input num2. Okay, but I need to delete this variable over here. Okay, so that's another way of solving this particular problem. Okay. Okay, so this is how this particular problem is solved. This is one way, and another way was creating a variable here, and then creating a process, adding those two variables, and then printing the sum. Again, this is another way to solve this particular problem. Okay, let me put this aside. Okay, the last problem is we need to create a flowchart that represents or simulates a taxi meter. The first kilometer is 35 baht and the succeeding kilometer is 2 baht. If you spend too much time in traffic, every minute is 2 baht. So just like in the real world, when you take a taxi, as soon as you sit down, as soon as you get in the taxi, what you will pay is 35 baht, granting it's 35 baht. And then as you move, after the first kilometer, every kilometer after the first kilometer will be 2 baht. So if you traveled 5 kilometers, the first kilometer is 35, and then the 4 remaining kilometers will each be 2 baht. So that will be 2, 4, 6, 8, and then the first kilometer is 35. So 8 plus 35 is what? 43, right? And then if you spend time in traffic, if you spend 2 minutes in traffic, that will be 2 times 2 is 4. 43 plus 4 is 47 baht. So in order for us to create a flowchart for that, we need to start with a terminator. Let me make this a little bit smaller. Okay. And then after that, we need to create a process symbol to define the different variables that we have. So I will write here first kilometer gets 35 baht. Okay, I did not write 0 because we won't start with 0. we're going to start with 35 baht. As soon as you sit down until the second kilometer, it's gonna be 35 baht. Okay, next kilometer is gonna be 2 baht each, right? Or we can write here km. Km is 2 baht. And then we have here time is 2 baht. Right? Time is 2 baht. Km is 2 baht. Okay, so let's and then we need to calculate for the total or the fare, which is 0. Okay, so and then we need to get from the user how far they travel, distance, and then the traffic, which is 0. So we will need input from the user. We need user to input, or the taxi to input, or the car to input how much distance they traveled, how much time they got stuck in traffic, and calculating those two will give us the fare, taking into consideration how much per kilometer cost, and how much per minute cost, and how much the first kilometer cost. Okay. So I just arrange this a little bit. So now we're ready for getting the input from the user. Okay, we will only need the distance and the traffic. Okay, let me change this to time in traffic. Time in traffic. So we will get how much distance we traveled and how much time in traffic we spent. Then after that we need to calculate, because these are the only things that we will ask from the user. We need to calculate how much the user needs to pay. Okay, so since we're going to just calculate, we will need to create a process for that. So here we will write fare gets first km plus distance minus 1. You might ask, why distance minus 1? Well, the first kilometer is 35 baht, right? If you traveled 5 kilometers, the first one is 35 baht. You don't need to recalculate that again. So you need to minus 1 so that only the 4 kilometers is actually processed. Times km. It's gonna be a long equation. Okay, and then plus right here time in traffic multiplying by 2. let's see. So distance minus 1 multiplied by kilometers. So if you traveled 5 kilometers minus 1, that's 4 times 2 plus time in traffic times 2, because every minute is multiplied by 2 by, and then you add all those. The result of this one will be added to time in traffic, and then will be added to the first kilometer. So say for example you have again 5 kilometers. You traveled 5 kilometers and then you got stuck for 2 minutes in traffic. So 4 times 2 should be time. So 5 minus 1 is 4 times 2. Km is 2. That is 8. And then over here, time in traffic, 2 times 2, that's 4. 4 plus 8 is 12, plus 35 is 47. So that's fair. That is what the value of fair is. After that, we will need to print it out. Okay, print it out using this particular symbol, the data symbol. We are here, print UK.
Sure.
Fair. And then after that, you need to create the end. So this is basically the solution of the 5th program, or the 5th problem. Just draw the okay. So this is basically it. If you have any questions, just email or comment on this particular video. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.